Today I want to talk to a subject which is tangentially connected to the media. Now, before I did that, I wanted to give you this little vignette to begin with. The reason being that it kind of connected, and it kind of shows you that what I'm talking about isn't all rubbish and isn't just wild conspiracy theories. And I know when you say, oh, the media, they don't just get this story wrong, but they get lots of other stories wrong, that just sounds like it's kind of weird and conspiracy theory nuttish, and I know that, I get that. I would think it myself if it was somebody else talking. But there are reasons why I'm going to say this thing. I've read newspapers before which are talking about subjects that I understand, and they get the news completely wrong. I'm sure if you're in an industry that's been covered by the newspapers before, you've had exactly the same thing. But we as a society, we trust the news. We are almost blind to it, to the point where we can see a report, maybe even on page 1, that said, I don't know, cannabis causes unicorns, or chunky Kit Kats are believed to be the devil's work, or something like that. And we can go, hang on a minute, that's rubbish. And then we can turn to the next page and read a different story and believe every single word of it. It's some kind of weird blindness that we have. I don't know what it is, I don't know why it works like that, but the upshot is we trust the media. Now, there's no problem with trusting the media on small things, because small things don't really matter. They might matter to the people who are involved, but to us who are reading it, it's not really going to change our lives. What matters are the big things, and today's video is all about one of those big things. There's a problem in Disneyland at the moment. Well, just beyond Disneyland, a place called Orange County. You might have heard of it before. It's a pretty famous place. There are people who live there who are known as anti-vaxxers. Now, this isn't the only place that they live. They live in all sorts of areas, in all walks of life. But there's quite a large community of people who are anti-vaxxers who live in this particular area. And the children of these people who didn't get the measles, mumps and rubella vaccine are now getting very sick because they've got, I think, measles. Don't quote me on that. It's in the newspapers if you want to go and have a look. Type in Orange County and anti-vaxxer and the information will come up. Why is this such a problem, you ask? Well, what these people have done, maybe inadvertently, and I'm sure they were doing what they thought was best for their children, is create a public health hazard. People in the area are getting sick and they're infecting other people who also haven't had this measles, mumps and rubella vaccine. You see, people can carry measles, mumps and rubella without actually being infected themselves. They might pass this disease on to somebody else who takes it home to somebody who isn't vaccinated, and all of a sudden they get very sick. What happens when we vaccinate people is that we take a tiny dose of the illness and then we give it to the patient. The patient then develops antibodies so that it can fight off any subsequent infections. It means they don't get ill again. It means that the virus doesn't mutate because we've naturally built up antibodies in order to protect it. It also means that the small percentage of people who can't have the immunisation for whatever reason, they don't get infected either. And this is really, really important. Immunisation levels in Orange County have dropped to something like 80%. That's ridiculously low. It sounds high, because 80 is quite a high number when you consider it's out of 100. But actually, it's not. It means that the people who should have been protected haven't been protected. And this outbreak has happened, and it's going on, and we're having to treat it. Which isn't always a good thing. This has all happened actually because of the media, if we're honest. The media is very good at dealing with very big topics in a very small way, of painting a broad brush across any subject that it tackles. What it can't do is specifics. What it can't do is to give, you know, really detailed information about where all the information is coming from, all of the pros, all of the cons, and to sort of marry that together. It tries as much as it can, but it can't, because it's just not the way that we let our media work. So a few years ago, and you might remember this, somebody said that MMR was connected with autism. Now, in every conceivable level of scientific scrutiny, that argument is bollocks. What actually happened was there was a study that said that out of all of these people who were given the MMR vaccine, a certain percentage of them developed autism. If you go back and read that study and you compare it to other studies and other statistics that say how many people are autistic in the grand scheme of things, you'll find that there's a rough correlation between the amount of people who became autistic after taking MMR and the amount of people who just became autistic through society. There's no statistical reason where you should assume that the MMR vaccine gives a child autism. And yet it was kind of painted by the media, who again were only doing their job, that it did. This is a lot like the hysteria that broke out over Edwina Currie when she was in Parliament. I know a lot of people won't remember Edwina Currie, but basically she said that eggs were very, very bad for you. And it's taken eggs' reputation years to recover from that, when actually there's not much wrong with them at all. Well, some people were worried by this, and you can understand why they might be worried by this. I mean, if you were told that a particular vaccine was going to make your child autistic, wouldn't you do something to stop them from having that vaccine? You would, wouldn't you? Except for the fact that it's a big mistake too, because the MMR vaccine is protecting your child. Not only that, it doesn't cause autism. Yet there are some people called anti-vaxxers, or that's how they call themselves anyway, who think that it does, who think that the pros don't outweigh the cons. Gregory House from the TV show House might describe them as idiots. But that's because the basic rule of thumb is this: trust your doctor. They might do something wrong, they are only human. But they're the people who know about these things. They're the people who will decide one way or another whether MMR is going to be good or bad for us. At the moment, all the research points to the MMR vaccine being a major boon to society. We should be taking it. Not if you don't need it, obviously. Not if it's going to kill you, obviously. But we should be giving it to our children. This is really the point of the story and what I wanted to get across today. There are certain things that we do because we think that they're the right things to do. We think that because we're told by people who we think are in charge. The fact is that very few people understand medicine enough to say one thing or other about it with complete certainty. That's the same for all levels of science. There are still big debates going on about climate science, about what of it is right and what of it is wrong. Because whereas the general consensus is global warming is happening and we are the cause of at least part of it, there are some people who are saying that actually, even though global warming is happening, if we do this to try and prevent it, that might make things worse. I don't know. I'm guessing that you don't know. I'm guessing that most people out there don't know because we're not the people who are actually researching this stuff. That's who we need to have watching our backs, the people who have the knowledge. And it's silly for any government, for any group of people, for any institution to say otherwise, because they don't know. I'm not stupid enough to put my faith in something that is untested or unproven or only shown to be working in a small group of people. But I am stupid enough to think that people who have trained in a particular subject know their subjects well. I make websites. I know a lot about making websites. I don't know everything, God no. But I know a lot. And there are people out there who say that they can make websites, who say that what they're going to do is going to be as good as what I can do, and yet they don't have as much knowledge, or they don't have as much creativity, or whatever it is that makes my websites what my websites are. And that's just a silly thing on the internet. That's just something that's going to help promote a business. This is more serious than that. This is people's health. We must trust the people who know, who are doing the studies, who are working every single day with these drugs. I don't even know if most of this has made sense. I didn't write today's video down. I should have done, and I was lazy and thought I can talk about this subject for 5 minutes and that'll be fine. But it's a pretty complex subject, and it's something that I honestly think that you should look into. If it's something that is going to affect you, go and read everything that you can about it, because that's the only way to be sure that your decision is a decision that you can stick by for the rest of your life. If you'd like more information on it, I really recommend looking up the Bad Science blog or searching for the name for Ben Goldacre on the internet. He's a doctor himself, and his blog runs through areas where the media has reported a medical story which isn't true. Now, that sort of thing happens all the time, and it's usually because, as I said earlier, the media paints everything with a pretty broad brush, and sometimes it doesn't quite get everything right. That's my opinion anyway. Let me know yours by leaving a comment below, or contacting us at Steve_Meller or at Burnt Papyrus on Twitter, /Burnt Papyrus on Facebook. Until next week, my name is Mr. Stephen, and have a good one.